if a stitch in time saves 9, we'll eventually figure it out on the show. We are doing questions from the idiom special. Mr. Hyneman, the first question from our fans is, why dog poo? And where did you get it? From dogs.
Yeah, I believe we just went to like a doggy daycare place or something, and they have plenty of it over there. You can get all you want anytime.
But why dog poo?
Why dog poo? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We were loath to use human poo, and I don't think...
That was actually totally, we were prohibited from going anywhere near human poo.
Yeah, I don't...
Which I'm glad for, really. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have aired it. We were pushing it anyway.
Jamie and I both have dogs, and we pick up a lot of dog poo. So we have a reasonable expectation that dog poo... We had a reasonable expectation that dog poo was reasonably close to human poo in consistency.
Yeah, I mean, not that there was a requirement one way or another, but...
if there's somebody that wants to do a bunch of extensive testing and disprove us, I don't want to know about the research. Okay, question number 2. It seemed like rather than testing out the myth, you were instead seeing what it took to get a positive outcome. Actually, both are true. That is pretty much the structure of any one of our episodes. If the myth turns out to be busted, we'll test the myth until we've figured out that it's busted. And then the question is, what would it take for the original statement to be true? Which often involves lots of explosives, but in this case involved, shovelfuls of blue Vulcan poo.
Yeah. What he said.
Number 3, in the past you've done idioms and changed the idiom as a result. For instance, it's like looking for a bone needle in a haystack. How would you change this idiom? That's a really good question, but I'm going to need more time than just this little segment to figure it out. It's like shovelfuls of poo hitting a fan at high speed with really big blades.
Yeah, we were looking at this one as sort of it's about the process itself. Even with something that is as ridiculous as testing what happens when poo hits a fan. Going through and parsing out all the elements and the variations within that story is really interesting. So, I think the episode stands quite well by itself and doesn't really need to be mucked about with too much.
I agree. Number 4, who chooses these myths and how do I get that job? Well, we choose these myths, and the turnover on this crew is pretty stinking low, I have to admit.
Sorry.
Number 5, when looking at your 3 poo metrics, I'm just letting that one sink in. When looking at your 3 poo metrics, why didn't you look at water content and particle size? Your first poo seemed really dry and smooth. Well, we could have looked at the individual components of poo and broken them down, but that's kind of the long way around. We were interested in its mechanical properties, not necessarily its building blocks. We didn't add corn to our fake poo.
Yeah, I think we picked the poo that we did because it was sort of in a medium range. I mean, we of course initially thought about using like diarrhea, and that sort of something we resisted that for some reason.
I resisted it. It was your suggestion.
Well, yeah.
We kept wanting to have this segment where Jamie comes in at the end and goes, "It's time for Montezuma's revenge."
Yeah. So this was a middling poo. I mean, you've got your poo that would kind of, go thud when it hits the ground. You've got one that kind of is in the middle, and you've got stuff that's liquid, and so we picked the one that was in the middle, and
we called it the Goldilocks Poo.
Yeah, the Goldilocks Poo, and that's
was just right.
We can revisit the other 2 types of poo at some point if you want. Maybe is poo hard enough to be lethal if it was fired at a certain velocity.
Sure, poo bullets.
The all-new season of MythBusters, Wednesdays at 9, only on Discovery.